Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we're going to be learning how to cut a Queen Anne neckline corset with a Basque waistline. So if it's something you would love to learn, please keep on watching, like, share and subscribe. So I've already gone ahead to rule out our basic lines. That is from our shoulder to our bust line, as you can see there. From our shoulder to our under bust, from our shoulder to our waist point, and then the Basque length I use 5 inches from the waist. So the next thing is to impute our measurement. So from the top of the paper here, I'm going to divide my shoulder by 2. I'm going to mark it right here, which is 7.5. Then on that point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. Then I'll come here to mark my basic neck of 3 inches. Then I'm going to connect the shoulder slope into the neck width, like so. Then I'm going to come to mark my neck depth of 3 inches. I'm going to mark 3 inches here. Then I'm going to connect from the neck width into the point I just marked, like so. Then the next thing is to get our arm length. And how to get your arm length: divide your bust by 6, add 1.5 inches to the measurement. Then I'm going to go ahead and extend that point across. Then what I have as my shoulder measurement, which is 7.5, I'm going to mark it on this line. Then I'm going to connect from the shoulder slope to that point we just marked. So this line now become our chest line. I'll just label it. Then I'll come to this line here. I'll divide it into 2 equal halves to get the midpoint. I'm going to mark it here. Then on that point, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. Then I'll come to the chest line, divide my bust circumference by 4. And I'm going to mark it on the chest line. And I'm going to connect all these points together. And the next thing is to create our dart, and to do that I'm going to divide my bust span by 2. That is my nipple to nipple measurement by 2. My nipple to nipple measurement is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. I'm going to mark it on all these lines, on the chest line, bust line, under bust line, waistline, and also on the Basque length. Then I'm going to connect all these points with a straight line. Then I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides of this line, on the Basque length, on the under bust, and then on the waistline. I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides of the line. But if you are a plus size, if your bust is big, you can mark 1.5 inches, right? So I'm going to mark it all the way to the under bust line. Then I'm going to connect these points together with a straight line. Then I'm going to connect from the bust line to the under bust with my curve rule. So you see how I place my curve rule. Then I'm going to go off from the chest line by 1.5 inches. Then I'm going to mark the 3.5 inches also here. Then I'm going to extend that line all the way to that point. So it depends on how open you want your chest to be. You can use 2 inches, 2.5 inches. It depends on how you want that place to be open. Then I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides of this line, on this line as well. Then I'm going to connect from that point all the way to the bust line. So I'll use my marker to outline the line to be more visible for us to see. And to create our cup, I'm going to come to the chest line. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch here. I'll go down by 1/2 inch on that point as well, and I'm going to connect a little line all the way to that point like this. Then I'm going to connect from that point all the way to the under bust line. You see how I place my curve rule like this. Our cup is gradually coming out. Then I'm going to connect from here to this point like this, and I'll take it all the way to this point like this. To get the other cup, I'm going to come to this armhole. I'm going to divide it into 2 equal halves, and I'm going to mark the midpoint. Then from that point, I'm going to connect all the way to the under bust. So make sure you place your curve rule properly so that you have a nice curve. And I'm going to connect from here all the way like this. So this is cup A and this is cup B. So I'll go ahead and impute my body measurement. My bust divided by 4, I'm going to mark it on the chest line here. Then the 2 inches for that, I'm going to replace it and then add 1 inch for seam allowance. I will divide my under bust by 4, so mark it on the under bust. The 2 inches for that intake, I'm going to replace it, then 1 inch for seam allowance. I'll come to the waistline, do the same thing. My waist divided by 4, I'm going to mark it. The 2 inches for that intake, I'll replace it, then 1 inch for seam allowance. And I'm going to go ahead and connect all these points together like this. Then to create the basque at the waistline, I'm going to go in by 1 inch on the waistline like this. Then I'm going to fold in my darts and I'm going to connect from that point all the way to the end of the pattern paper like so. So this is basically it for this part. To create our Queen Anne neckline, I'm going to mark 2 inches here. Then I'm going to connect from the neck width all the way to that 2 inches we just marked. Then I'm going to go up by 0.25 here. This is to make our corset relax wear here, or our cup relax wear here. And I'm going to cancel this place. This is where we're going to cut out. So I'll go ahead and cut the pattern paper out. So this is basically it for the front. So I want to take a little time to plead with you, or if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do where to subscribe. Subscription is free. Like, share, and do where to leave a comment as well, so that YouTube algorithm can recognize the video and show it to more people, right? If you have any question, do where to leave it on the comment section. So we now have our pattern for the front ready. I'll keep this aside so that we can go ahead with the back. I've already gone ahead to rule out all the necessary lines we need for the back pattern. You can see here I have my zipper allowance here of 1.5 inches from my shoulder to my chest line, bust line, under bust line, waistline. We don't need that bust effect for the back pattern, so we stopped at the waistline. So I'm going to come to this line here to mark the midpoint. Then on that point I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch, just the way we did for the front pattern. Then I'm going to come to the chest line, divide my bust circumference by 4. I'm going to mark it on the chest line. Then I'm going to connect all these points together, just the way we did for the front pattern. So for the neck, I marked 3 by 2 inches. I used 3 inches for the width and then 2 inches for the neck depth. Then I'm going to go ahead to create my darts, divide my nipple to nipple measurement by 2, which is 3.5. I'm going to mark it on all these lines here. Then I'm going to go ahead and rule a straight line connecting all these points together. Then on the waistline, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on both sides of this line here. Then I'm going to connect from the chest line all the way to that point we just marked on the waistline. So I'll go ahead and impute my body measurement. My bust divided by 4, I'm going to mark it on the chest line, add 1 inch for seam allowance, come to the under bust line, my under bust divided by 4, mark it, then the dart intake, I'm going to replace it, then add 1 inch for seam allowance. I'll do the same thing on the waistline, my waist divided by 4, mark it, the 1 inch for that intake, I'll replace it, then add 1 inch for seam allowance. I'm going to connect all these points together. Then I'm going to come to the neck depth and mark 1 inch from there, mark 1 inch downward. Then I'm going to connect from that 1 inch all the way to meet the dart line like this. Then I'll come to the zipper allowance here. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch here. This is to prevent our zip from bulging after sewing. I'm going to connect it all the way up. This is the part we are going to cut out. So this is the yoke. Then I'll go ahead and cut it. This is basically it for the back. Then I'm going to mark 1/2 inch here to make our back relax wear, just the way we did for the front also. So I'll go ahead and cut everything out. So this is the back pattern. So keep this aside so that we can work on the skirt part, the down part. So I'll go ahead and mark from my waist to my hip point, which is 9. Then I'll subtract our half length, which is 15 inches, and I'll come down to mark my skirt length. Then I'm going to add 1 inch for folding. Then I'll go ahead and extend all these points across. So this is my skirt length and this is my allowance. I'll go ahead and extend these points across as well. So this is my hip line. So I'll come to the waistline, divide my waist by 4. I'm going to mark it on the waistline here, then add 1 inch for seam allowance. Come to the hip line, divide my hip by 4. Then I add 1 inch for seam allowance. So what I have on the hip line, I'm going to remove 1 inch. So it depends on how pencil you want your skirt to be. You can remove 2 inches. So I remove 1 inch from my hip measurement, then I mark it on the skirt length, and I'm going to connect all these points together. Then to create that basque effect on the skirt, I'm going to bring in my front pattern. I'm going to place it on the skirt like this. Make sure it's properly placed. Then I'm going to trace it on the skirt. I'm going to trace the basque effect on the skirt like this. I'll just outline the lines so it's more visible. So by the time you cut this out and you join the half length to the skirt, this is how it's going to look like. So this is it for today's tutorial. Thank you so much for staying tuned. See you in my next video.